Humiliated while trying to borrow a book, a young man hears, "This place is not for you." But years later, he returns to the same place. This time, with something no one could have predicted. Liam held the cleaning cloth tightly, the bucket of water swaying dangerously on the edge of the metal hook. It was just another day like any other, and he was already used to working at heights, but today his focus was divided. His eyes constantly drifted toward the interior of the building, specifically to the expansive library that occupied the first 2 floors. The library was a spectacle of grandeur. The tall windows allowed sunlight to pour over the polished wooden shelves, filled with books that seemed out of reach for him. It was as if those books held not only stories and information, but also the promise of a different life. Liam often paused to imagine what it would be like to sit at one of those reading tables, immersed in a world where possibilities felt infinite. But for Liam, those possibilities seemed as distant as the stars. At 19 years old, he already bore the weight of responsibilities that few young people knew. He worked as a window cleaner to support his mother, who suffered from health issues, and to pay the bills for the small house they lived in a humble neighborhood. Dreaming of an education felt almost like an affront to the reality he faced. As he finished cleaning the last pane, a moment of unexpected courage surged within him. Why couldn't he step into that library, even if just to take a look? He cleaned the windows there every week. It was as if he already belonged to the place, at least in an indirect way. Today, he thought, I will try. When he descended from the platform and finished his shift, he quickly wiped his hands on his worn jeans, trying to mask his nervousness. He walked to the library's main entrance and paused for a moment in front of the glass doors, where he could see his reflection. He hesitated, observing his simple clothes and the smudges of dirt on his sneakers. Will they notice that I don't belong here? He wondered. But something inside him insisted. He pushed open the doors and took a hesitant step inside. The first thing that hit him was the smell, the unmistakable aroma of old books mixed with the freshness of the air conditioning. It was a welcoming yet intimidating sensation. Liam felt as if all eyes were on him, although that was merely his insecurity speaking. He walked slowly toward one of the shelves, running his fingers along the spines of the books. The touch was almost magical. Each title seemed to call out to him, promising worlds he had never known. He picked up a hardcover book, almost trembling, and began to leaf through it. He had barely started reading the preface when a cutting voice interrupted his daydream. "Excuse me, can I help you?" The voice was cold, laced with disdain. Liam looked up to see Mr. Graves, the library director, standing a few meters away. The man wore an immaculate suit and had an expression of disgust. "Are you looking for something specific?" Graves continued, his gaze scanning Liam from head to toe. Liam tried to explain, his voice trembling, that he just wanted to take a look at the books. But before he could finish, Graves laughed, drawing the attention of a few nearby patrons. "Do you think you deserve to be here?" He shook his head, as if Liam's mere presence was an affront. "This place is for people who value knowledge, not for, well, people like you." Graves's words were like daggers. Liam felt his face burn with shame as some people whispered, watching the scene unfold. Graves stepped forward, yanking the book from Liam's hands and placing it back on the shelf. "I suggest you leave before someone has to call security." Liam hesitated for a moment, as if expecting someone to intervene, to say that he had as much right to be there as anyone else, but no one did anything. He lowered his head and walked toward the exit, each step heavy with the humiliation he felt. When he reached the door, he turned one last time, looking at the grandeur of the library and the faces that silently judged him. As he stepped outside, he felt the cold air of the street hit his face. He tried to hold back the tears but couldn't. He walked to a nearby bench and sat down, burying his face in his hands. Graves's cruel words echoed in his mind. "People like you will never get anywhere." He couldn't shake those words. It was as if they had taken root in his heart. But as time passed, something began to change within him. The humiliation gave way to anger, and the anger transformed into determination. He looked at the library in the distance, its windows shining in the afternoon sun. "One day," he murmured to himself, I will prove him wrong. The promise hung in the air like a solemn vow. Liam knew that the journey would be long and difficult, but at that moment he decided he wouldn't let humiliation define his life. He stood up, wiped away his tears, and headed home. That day, he didn't have all the answers, but he knew one thing. This was only the beginning. Who is Liam to dare dream of something so grand? How will he transform pain into strength? The next morning, Liam returned to work with a mind still heavy from the humiliation he had faced the day before. Every time he glanced at the library windows, Mr. Graves's face and his cruel words returned like an insistent shadow. The promise he had made to himself the night before felt like a distant flame, hard to reignite. As he cleaned the facade of a cafe across the street, he felt a difficult-to-explain emptiness. He used to comfort himself with the idea that he was slowly building something for a better future, but now everything felt stagnant, as if the world conspired to remind him that his dreams were unattainable. Liam finished the cafe job and was about to leave when he saw a woman walk in. She wore a simple dress, but her posture was confident. Her eyes immediately recognized him, and he realized it was Zara, one of the librarians who had been present on the day of the humiliation. He tried to look away, embarrassed, but it was too late. Zara walked directly up to him. "Do you work around here?" she asked, her tone genuinely curious. Liam hesitated, looking at the ground. "Yes, I clean windows and storefronts." Zara gave a small smile, not condescending but rather one of admiration. "I remember you at the library yesterday." He felt his face flush. "Yeah, I guess everyone remembers." "Not because of what happened," she said quickly, seeming eager to correct any misunderstanding, "but because what you did was brave. Walking in there and facing that environment, even with everything against you, takes more courage than most people have." Liam raised his eyes, surprised by her sincerity. He didn't know how to respond, so he just gave a slight nod, uncomfortable with the compliment. "Wait here," Zara said, going to the cafe counter. He was confused, watching her as she placed an order. A few minutes later, she returned with a cup of tea for herself and a glass of water for him. "I saw what happened, and I couldn't do anything at the time," she said, pulling out a chair and sitting down at the table. "But I don't want to stand by idly." Liam looked at her, confused and hesitant. "Why? You don't even know me." "Because I know the system," Zara replied, a spark of determination in her eyes. "And I know how it works against people like you. I've seen it before. I can't change what happened, but maybe I can help in some way." Before Liam could react, Zara opened her bag and pulled out a book. It was a well-used copy, with frayed edges and a marked spine. She placed the book on the table and slid it toward him. "Believe me, this could be a start," she said, smiling. "Read this book. It's about people who started with nothing and changed the world through learning. It doesn't matter where you begin, Liam. What matters is how you decide to move forward." He looked at the book, hesitating. "I don't have much time to read," he lied, but she noticed his hesitation. "Make the time," she insisted. "You're not just reading stories. You're absorbing possibilities." Liam finally took the book, almost reverently. "Thank you," he said, genuinely touched. It was the first time someone outside his family had shown such faith in him. Later that night, Liam sat at his small table, with only the dim light of a candle illuminating the book Zara had given him. He opened the first page and was immediately captivated by the introduction. The book spoke of self-taught individuals who changed the course of their lives, like inventors, leaders, and even writers who began without formal education. As he read, a spark of hope began to form. The words in the book were like a map for him, showing that it might be possible to rise from where he was to something greater. He continued reading, page after page, completely absorbed. When he reached the halfway point, something caught his attention. On one page, there was a handwritten note, almost hidden in the footer. "Don't give up, I was rejected too." Liam stopped, his eyes fixated on the phrase. The handwriting was simple, but the words carried a weight that felt like they were speaking directly to him. Who had written that? Did Zara know about the message? Or had it been left by someone before her? He closed the book for a moment, pondering the sentence. As much as he didn't know who had written those words, he felt as if they were a message, a sign that he wasn't alone. He reread the phrase several times before continuing, determined to absorb every lesson that book could offer. The next day, Liam was back at work. The words from the book still echoed in his mind as he cleaned a series of storefronts on Main Street. The humiliation he had felt days earlier no longer seemed unbearable. It was as if he had a new perspective, a renewed purpose. At noon, during his break, he went to the library and looked from afar at the windows. Mr. Graves was inside, talking to some patrons, and Liam felt a tightness in his chest. But instead of feeling crushed, he remembered the phrase from the book, "I was rejected too." Maybe, he thought, even the people who seemed untouchable had faced defeats. He realized that the phrase wasn't just a comfort, but a call to action. If someone had overcome rejection before, he could too. Liam looked at the library for a few more moments before returning to work, with renewed determination. That night, as he finished another chapter of the book, his mother entered the small room with a cup of tea for him. "What are you reading?" she asked, curious. Liam showed her the book, explaining that it was about people who had transformed their lives through learning. "That's good," she said, placing her hand on his shoulder. "You've always had something special, Liam. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." He smiled at her, feeling a wave of gratitude. His mother's quiet support had always been a constant in his life, but now it felt more important than ever. As she left the room, he returned to reading, promising himself that he would do everything he could to honor her trust. The next morning, Liam went back to the cafe where he had met Zara. He didn't know if she would be there, but he wanted to thank her again for the book. When he walked in, he saw her sitting in a corner, with a laptop open and a stack of papers beside her. "Zara," he said, approaching her, "I just wanted to say thank you for the book. It really opened my eyes to a lot of things." She looked up at him and smiled, closing her laptop. "I'm glad to hear that. How is the reading going?" "It's making me think about a lot of things," he replied, "but it also left me with a question. There's a note on one of the pages. Do you know who wrote it?" Zara tilted her head, looking curious. "No, I don't know. That book has been in the library for years. It could have been anyone. Why?" "Because it feels like it was written for me," Liam said with a half smile. "It's strange, but those words made me believe that maybe I can do it too." Zara smiled again, but this time with a glint in her eyes. "Maybe it's a sign," she said. "Or maybe it's just more proof that you already have everything you need to get where you want." Liam felt her words resonate in his heart. He didn't know who had left that message, but he knew it had come at the exact moment he needed it most. Who left that message? Was it a warning or an inspiration? And how would Liam use this new purpose to shape his future? Before we continue with the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like if you're enjoying it so far. Your support is essential for the growth of this channel, and it helps us bring you more inspiring stories like this one. Now, let's get back to the journey. The weeks that followed were intense for Liam. The book Zara had given him became a constant companion, but he knew he needed to do more than just read. Inspired by the stories of perseverance he found within its pages, Liam began to save rigorously. Every penny he earned cleaning windows went into a personal fund he called the Future Fund. He stopped buying small indulgences, like the coffee he used to enjoy during work breaks, and began waking up earlier to take on extra jobs before his regular shift. His goal was clear: to buy books that would expand his knowledge and give him a chance to compete on equal footing with those who frequented the library. At night, the time he once used to rest was now dedicated to studying. The small wooden table in his room became his learning space, and the candlelight was his faithful ally. He read voraciously, absorbing everything from advanced grammar to history and philosophy. Despite the fatigue that piled up, Liam felt a new energy fueled by the desire to prove he was no less than anyone else. One day, while cleaning the outside windows of the library, Liam noticed a large poster hanging on the bulletin board. He approached to read it and saw the announcement for a writing contest sponsored by the library itself. The theme was "The Power of Knowledge in Social Transformation." Winners would have their essays published in a local magazine, as well as receive a cash prize. Liam felt his heart race. This was his chance. He could show the world, and Mr. Graves, that he had something to say. He knew the road wouldn't be easy, but the theme seemed tailor-made for him. After all, no one understood more about overcoming obstacles and the impact of knowledge than he did. That night, Liam took out a notebook he had bought with some of his savings and began to draft his ideas. He wrote about his own journey, the barriers he faced, and how access to knowledge could transform anyone's life. Every word came straight from his heart, and for the first time he felt his voice had a purpose. The following nights were dedicated to crafting his essay. He revised, rewrote, and read aloud to himself, trying to find the perfect tone. When he finally finished, he felt proud. "This is it," he thought. "This is how I'm going to start changing my life." As always, Zara supported his decision. When he told her about the contest, she smiled and promised to help him submit his essay. "Liam, your writing will make a difference. I believe in you," she said, with a sparkle in her eyes that motivated him even more. Days later, Liam submitted his essay at the library's reception. The woman who received the envelope gave him a curious look but said nothing. He left with his heart in his throat, anxious and hopeful. The thought of winning the contest and finally being recognized kept him focused and optimistic. But the wait was torturous. Each passing day, Liam found himself thinking about the outcome, imagining the impact his victory would have. He dreamed of the moment his name would be announced and the look of surprise and perhaps regret on Mr. Graves's face. Finally, the day arrived. The library would announce the results that morning. Liam decided to stop by during his work break, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement. When he arrived, he found Zara near the entrance. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, smiling. "I don't know if I'm ready, but I'm here," he replied. Zara accompanied Liam to the bulletin board, where a small crowd had already gathered. He held his breath as the results were posted. The silence was quickly broken by murmurs and exclamations. Liam searched the list for his name, but it wasn't there. His heart sank. He checked the list again desperately, but it was useless. He had not been selected. The disappointment hit him like a wave, and for a moment he stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. Zara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Liam, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice filled with sadness. "This doesn't make sense. I read your essay. It was incredible." Before they could say anything more, Mr. Graves appeared. He looked at Liam with a cold, satisfied smile. "Surprised you're not on the list? Well, contests like this require a certain level of qualification that, unfortunately, you lack." Graves's words cut like knives, but this time Liam didn't feel shame. He felt anger. He clenched his fists, but before he could respond, Zara intervened. "This is ridiculous," she said, her eyes shining with indignation. "Liam is more qualified than half the people on that list. You manipulated this, didn't you?" Graves shrugged, wearing an air of superiority. "I simply ensure the library maintains its standards." Later that day, Zara found Liam in a nearby park. He was sitting on a bench, staring into space. She sat next to him, saying nothing for a moment, simply offering her presence. "I'll never win against this system, Zara," he said, finally breaking the silence. His voice was filled with frustration and pain. "No matter how hard I try, they'll always find a way to keep me in the place they think I belong." Zara looked at him, tears in her eyes. "I know how you feel, Liam. I've seen this happen so many times, but you can't let it defeat you." "So what do I do?" he asked, anger and sadness mixing in his voice. "How do I fight against something so big?" Zara took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "You change the game," she said finally. "If the system won't accept you, you create a new one. Show them you don't need their rules to win." Liam looked at her, absorbing her words. Something inside him began to shift. He realized Zara was right. It wasn't just about winning a contest, it was about something bigger. It was about proving he had worth, no matter what they said or did to stop him. He stood up, feeling a new determination swell within him. "If the system won't accept me," he said, his voice steady, "I will change it." In the days that followed, Liam returned to work and study with renewed energy. He knew the path would be long and difficult, but he was more determined than ever. The defeat in the contest was not the end of his journey. It was just the beginning of something much greater. How does Liam plan to change a system that rejects him? What will he do to turn his determination into action? Days passed slowly for Liam, but his determination grew with each new dawn. Despite the setback in the contest, he continued studying and working with the same dedication. What Mr. Graves had done was not just a personal blow, it reflected something much larger, a system that crushed anyone who dared to challenge its norms. As he cleaned the outside windows of the library on a cloudy afternoon, Liam couldn't help but observe the silent corridors inside. He spotted Graves in the distance, walking with his arrogant posture, and felt the anger bubble up again. But Liam knew that acting impulsively wouldn't get him anywhere. He needed an opportunity, something that would change the game. That same day, fate seemed to conspire in Liam's favor. While cleaning the windows on the second floor, he noticed that one of the usually locked rooms had its door ajar. He knew that room was used for administrative meetings and was rarely accessed by staff or visitors. For a moment he hesitated. Curiosity battled against the fear of being caught. Looking around to make sure no one was nearby, he slipped through the window and entered the room. The space was small, with dark wooden furniture and shelves filled with files. The air was thick with the scent of aged paper, mixed with a faint aroma of coffee. On the main table there was a stack of seemingly forgotten documents. Liam felt his heart race. He wasn't there to cause trouble, but something about that stack caught his eye. On top was a letterhead mentioning educational inclusion programs and a significant sum of money. Driven by curiosity, he began to flip through the papers. What he found left him speechless. The documents detailed the embezzlement of funds allocated for educational programs for low-income youth. The money, originally earmarked for scholarships and workshops, was being redirected to Mr. Graves's personal expenses. Renovations on his house, international trips, and even lavish dinners were listed as administrative expenses. Liam felt his blood boil. The man who had publicly humiliated him and shut doors in his face was not only manipulating the system, but also stealing opportunities from other young people like him. Liam knew he had to share what he had found, but not with just anyone. That night he went to the cafe where Zara often worked on her projects. As expected, she was there, surrounded by her stack of papers and open laptop. "Zara," he said, pulling out a chair and sitting next to her, "I need to talk to you, it's serious." The tone of his voice made Zara close her laptop immediately. "What happened?" she asked, concerned. Liam laid the documents on the table, explaining how he had come across them. She read the first pages in silence, but her expression began to change as the words sank in. Finally, she looked at him, her eyes wide with indignation. "I knew Graves was corrupt, but this is much bigger than I imagined," she said, almost whispering. Liam stared at her, curious. "You knew?" Zara hesitated for a moment, taking a deep breath before responding. "I suspected. Years ago, I found some inconsistencies in the library's financial reports. I tried to bring it to the board's attention, but Graves is well connected. He managed to silence my complaint and even threatened to fire me if I kept pushing. Since then, I learned to keep my head down." Liam fell silent, digesting what he had heard. The injustice seemed infinite. "So what do we do now?" he finally asked. Zara looked at the documents again, thinking, "You have something big in your hands, Liam, but exposing Graves won't be easy. He has allies everywhere. We need to be strategic." In the following days, Liam couldn't stop thinking about the documents. He kept them hidden at home, away from any curious eyes, but he knew that just having them wasn't enough. The anger he felt consumed him, but he knew he needed to channel it into something productive. He started to think about how he could use the information to pursue justice. Reporting Graves directly seemed too risky. The man had power and connections that could turn the tables against him. Liam needed a plan. While cleaning the library windows on a particularly busy day, he observed Zara working with a group of children in a reading room. Seeing her passion for helping youth inspired him. He knew that if he wanted to make an impact, he had to act intelligently. He found Zara again at the cafe that night and shared his thoughts. "I think we can use this for something bigger," he said, gesturing to the documents. "It's not just about Graves. It's about everything he represents. I don't want to just take him down. I want to change the system that allows people like him to exist." Zara smiled, a bit surprised but clearly impressed. "You have a good point, but this will require more than courage. We need allies, solid evidence, and the right moment to act." Together, they began to devise a plan to expose Graves. Zara would use her contacts in the local media to ensure that when the evidence was revealed, there would be enough pressure to prevent him from escaping consequences. Liam, in turn, would continue studying and working, staying off the radar while gathering more information. "We need to wait for the right moment," Zara said while reviewing the documents. "If we act too soon, he'll find a way to cover everything up." Liam nodded, though the waiting was difficult. He wanted justice, but he knew patience was essential. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions for Liam. He continued cleaning the library windows, but every time he saw Graves, he felt a mix of anger and purpose. The humiliation he had experienced was no longer just a painful episode, it was the catalyst for something much greater. Meanwhile, Zara helped him refine his writing skills, preparing him for future opportunities to share his story. She believed that when the right moment came, Liam should be the face of the denunciation against Graves, showing the world that people like him could make a difference. One night, Zara called Liam for a meeting at the cafe, but this time there was something different in her tone. "We need to protect these documents," she said, putting a box of files into her bag. "I'll keep them safe at my apartment. If anything happens, you know where to find them." Liam felt the weight of responsibility in her words. He knew they were dealing with something dangerous, but he also knew it was necessary. Although they still didn't know exactly how or when they would act, Liam and Zara were determined. The documents were the key to something larger, and they knew they had to be careful. For Liam, the time to be just a window cleaner was coming to an end. He didn't know what the future held, but he was ready to face it. How will Liam use this discovery to fight against Graves? And will he be ready to face the consequences? The day seemed normal when Liam arrived at work that morning. The sky was grey, but it wasn't raining, and the wind was just a gentle breeze. He had spent the previous night reviewing strategies with Zara on how to keep the documents secure and find the right opportunity to expose Mr. Graves. Despite everything, Liam felt like he was in control of his life for the first time in years. However, fate had other plans. Liam climbed onto the suspended platform with the same skill as always. It was a job that required concentration and balance, and he knew that any slip-up could be dangerous. As he cleaned the window on the third floor of a commercial building, he noticed that the support rope was a bit worn. He made a mental note to inform his supervisor but continued with his work. However, as he reached to clean a corner of the window, he felt the platform sway irregularly. Before he could react, he heard a loud snap. The support gave way, and everything happened in seconds. He fell, plummeting to the ground. The pain was instant and overwhelming. He heard screams around him, but everything felt distant, as if he were trapped in a muffled world. When he finally lost consciousness, the last thing he saw was the grey sky above him. Liam woke up in the hospital, with the constant sound of machines surrounding him. He tried to move, but the pain in his leg and ribs was unbearable. When he looked down, he saw that his right leg was in a cast, and his left arm was in a sling. His mother was sitting beside the bed, her eyes red from crying. "You're okay, sweetheart," she said, holding his hand, "but it's going to take time for you to recover." The news hit him like a crushing weight. Liam learned from the doctor that his leg had suffered multiple fractures and that he would need months of physical therapy to regain mobility. He had also dislocated his shoulder, which would make any physical work impossible for a long time. The initial shock gave way to despair. He knew he wouldn't be able to work, and his mother, who was already struggling to keep up with the bills, wouldn't be able to support both of them on her own. The following weeks were the hardest of Liam's life. He spent his days confined to bed, unable to do anything for himself. His mother sought help from neighbors and acquaintances, but money was tight. The electricity was cut off once, and they could only get it reactivated with the help of Zara, who brought money from her own savings. Liam began to sink into a cycle of self-pity. He stared at the ceiling of his small room, thinking about Mr. Graves's words. "You'll never get anywhere," echoed in his mind. For the first time, he began to believe that perhaps Graves was right. He felt that all the progress he had made, all the sacrifices, had been in vain. The accident felt like a message from the universe, telling him he had no chance of winning. On a rainy afternoon, while Liam was alone at home, he heard a knock at the door. It was Zara, holding a bag of food and wearing a determined look on her face. "You're making this room feel like a tomb," she said, stepping in without waiting for an invitation. "This isn't the Liam I know." He shrugged, unwilling to argue. Maybe the Liam you knew realized he was dreaming too big. Zara placed the bag on the table and pulled up a chair to sit beside him. "You know," she began, looking directly at him, "I was thinking about that quote from that book. Don't give up. I was rejected too. You remember it, right?" Liam nodded, lacking much energy. "I always thought that quote was written for you," she continued, "but now I see that maybe it's also about you. You have a story to tell, Liam, and this isn't how it ends." He looked at her, surprised. "How can you say that? Look at me. I'm stuck in this bed. I can't work. I can't fight Graves. I don't even know if I'll walk properly again." Zara leaned forward, her voice softening but brimming with conviction. "You faced worse things, Liam. And you know what happened? You got back up. It doesn't matter how many times life knocks you down. What matters is that you always find a way to rise again." Zara's words planted a small seed of hope in Liam. That night, he picked up the book she had given him months before. With effort, he began to reread the passages that had inspired him. The message scrawled in the margins was still there, and this time he read it with new eyes. "Don't give up, I was rejected too." He began to think about all the people who had faced rejection and hardship, but kept fighting. If they could do it, why couldn't he? In the days that followed, Liam started to push himself more. He asked his mother to help him sit up, and he began to work on the small exercises recommended by the doctors. It was painful and slow, but he knew it was necessary. He also returned to studying. Zara brought him some new books, and Liam dove into them, taking advantage of the time he now had to learn. Each page was a step towards his goal. One morning, while doing his physical therapy exercises at home, Liam paused and looked out the window. The sun was shining, and for the first time in weeks, he felt a genuine sense of hope. He knew there was still a long way to go, but he also knew he wasn't alone. His mother, Zara, and even the words scrawled in the book were reminders that he could overcome anything. "I won't let this defeat me," he said, his voice steady. "No matter how long it takes, I will rise again, and when I do, no one will stop me." Zara, who was beside him, smiled. "That's what I wanted to hear." Liam began to use his time to plan the next steps. He and Zara discussed ways to strengthen the case against Graves, but now Liam had a new approach. He wanted not just to expose the man, but also to create something that would bring real change for people like him. "If the system doesn't work for us," he said in one of their meetings, "then we need to build a new system." Zara nodded, seeing the fire return to Liam's eyes. "And I'll be by your side, Liam. We'll do this together." Can Liam transform his determination into action? Will he find enough strength to confront Graves and change the system? The months of recovery tested Liam's patience and mental strength. Gradually, he began to regain mobility in his leg and strength in his arm, though the physical and emotional scars remained. During this time, he immersed himself in studies with an almost obsessive determination. The words of Zara and the constant support from his mother kept him steadfast in his purpose. One day, while browsing the internet for resources to expand his knowledge, Liam stumbled upon something that caught his attention: a scholarship program for young entrepreneurs. Sponsored by an international organization, it offered training in leadership and project development for individuals with inspiring stories. The scholarship covered all expenses, including housing and travel to the host country. Liam hesitated. He had no diploma or academic background to stand out. His resume was just a long list of low-skilled jobs. But a section caught his eye. Candidates were required to submit a personal letter detailing their stories and how they overcame adversity. It was his chance to turn his scars into strength. He spent nights writing his letter, recounting his life sincerely. He spoke about the challenging environment he grew up in, the humiliation he faced in the library, and how he found strength in the pursuit of knowledge. He also included his ideas for creating a more inclusive system for marginalized individuals, a dream that had grown from his own struggles. When he finished, he felt he had poured his heart into every word. With Zara's help, he revised and submitted his application, trying not to cling too tightly to hope. "Whatever happens, you're already an inspiration," Zara said before clicking the submit button for him. 2 weeks later, while finishing a physical therapy session, Liam's phone vibrated with a notification. It was an email from the organization. He opened it, and his eyes widened as he read the first lines. "Congratulations, Liam. Your story touched us deeply. We are thrilled to inform you that you have been selected for the scholarship program at our center in London. Your potential impact is undeniable, and we can't wait to help you turn your vision into reality." Liam couldn't hold back the tears. His mother hugged him tightly, and Zara, who had rushed over upon hearing the news, was radiant. "I told you, they couldn't ignore your story." The farewell was emotional. While excited about what lay ahead, Liam felt the weight of leaving his mother and Zara behind. He promised to stay in touch and spent the little money he had on a better phone, ensuring he could talk to them regularly. As the plane took off, he looked out the window, realizing he was leaving behind more than just his hometown. He was leaving behind the old version of himself. Arriving in London felt like stepping into another world. The historic buildings, the people from different cultures, and the vibrant energy initially intimidated him. But the program was well structured, and the other scholars, many with equally inspiring stories, made Liam feel part of something much larger. The first few weeks were challenging. Liam had never attended a formal classroom setting and felt out of place among peers who appeared more prepared. During leadership classes, he often remained silent, fearing that his lack of experience would make him a target for judgment. But it was during a session on resilience in times of adversity that he found his voice. When the instructor asked the students to share personal stories, Liam hesitated but knew he needed to speak. He shared his journey, from cleaning windows to facing humiliation in the library and the accident that nearly left him incapacitated. The room fell silent as he spoke, and when he finished, he noticed some people were in tears. "You are the definition of resilience," the instructor said with a warm smile. "Never underestimate the impact your story can have." From that moment on, Liam began to open up more. He excelled in projects that required creative thinking and empathy, often inspiring his classmates with his ideas on inclusion and social justice. He felt he was growing, not just as a student, but as a person. The program included practical workshops on entrepreneurship, where scholars needed to create solutions for real problems. Liam presented an idea he had been nurturing since his conversation with Zara, a project for inclusive community libraries, where anyone could access resources and learn without financial or social barriers. His presentation was a success. The program mentors were impressed with his passion and practical vision. They encouraged him to think about ways to implement the project in his home country, offering logistical support and even initial funding. These achievements gave Liam newfound confidence, but they also brought an emotional weight. He knew that as much as he was growing there, his true test would come when he returned home. It was there that he needed to fight to make a difference. Despite all his progress, there were moments when Liam was still haunted by the pain of his past. The words of Mr. Graves and the challenges he faced sometimes felt like scars that would never fully heal. One lonely night in his small apartment in London, he wrote a letter to Zara, venting his feelings. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm really good enough. It feels like I'm so far away from home, and even with everything I'm learning, I still feel like I'll never truly be accepted in the system I want to change." Zara replied the same day. "Liam, don't confuse the voice of the past with the voice of the present. You're not in that library anymore being judged by Graves. You're here, growing and learning. And more importantly, you're becoming the person who will make a difference. Don't give up now." Those words reignited the flame within Liam. He knew Zara was right. He had something that Graves would never have: resilience and purpose. The program came to an end in the blink of an eye. At the graduation event, Liam was invited to give a speech representing his class. He spoke about the importance of turning pain into strength and how education was a powerful tool for changing lives. His speech was met with a standing ovation, and for the first time he felt that his voice had impact. Before returning home, the program mentors handed him a formal letter of support for his community library project, along with a promise of initial funding. He felt that he finally had the tools to begin his journey. However, the return would not be easy. He knew that Graves was still in power and that he would face resistance in trying to implement his ideas. But Liam was ready. He was no longer the insecure young man who cleaned windows. He was a budding leader determined to change not just his life, but the lives of everyone around him. What will Liam do upon his return? Is he truly prepared to face Graves and turn his ideas into reality? If this story is touching you, please subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. It means so much to us and helps our channel grow to reach more people with these powerful narratives. Let's dive back into the story. The plane landed in his hometown on a warm spring afternoon. As Liam walked through the airport terminal, he felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He was no longer the young window cleaner who had left years ago. He had returned as a businessman with a mission. After years of learning and growing, Liam felt ready to face whatever awaited him. He carried with him more than just clothes. He brought ideas, connections, and the determination to transform the system that had once rejected him. Liam knew that his first action needed to be strategic. In secret, he negotiated the purchase of the library, where he had been humiliated by Mr. Graves. The process was complex, but with the support of the contacts he made during his studies in London, he managed to acquire the building without drawing attention. When the purchase was finalized, he publicly announced a complete renovation project. The library would be transformed into an inclusive community center, offering free educational programs, unlimited access to books, and digital resources for low-income youth. The announcement made a significant impact in the community. Many people were excited about the idea, especially those who had never had access to such resources. But not everyone was happy. Mr. Graves was still an influential figure in town. Although he was no longer the library's director, he continued to pull strings behind the scenes to protect his interests and reputation. When he learned that the library was to be renovated, Graves initially dismissed it, but upon discovering that Liam was behind the project, his expression changed. "Liam? That kid who used to clean windows," he said with an ironic smile to one of his allies. "He has no idea what he's doing." Graves began to work to sabotage Liam's project. He spread rumors that the renovation was merely a facade for personal gain. He also tried to undermine Liam's reputation by reminding everyone of his humble origins and claiming that he lacked the experience to manage something so significant. The rumors quickly reached Liam's ears. Rather than retreat, he chose to confront the criticism head-on. He scheduled an interview with a local newspaper and for the first time shared his story publicly. "I was rejected by this system," Liam said as the cameras rolled. "I was humiliated, devalued, and put in a position where there was no way to win. But I never gave up. I used every obstacle as motivation to move forward, and now I want to ensure that no one else goes through what I went through." Liam's sincerity won many hearts. He didn't try to hide his humble beginnings. Instead, he used them as proof of his resilience. He shared details about the challenges he faced, from the accident that nearly incapacitated him to the struggle to obtain an education in a system that had rejected him. Liam's story began to spread rapidly. Young people who identified with his journey started seeking ways to get involved with the project. Local organizations offered support, and even some business people in town were willing to fund parts of the renovation. But not everyone was on Liam's side. Graves's allies tried to discredit him, claiming that his story was exaggerated and that he was merely seeking attention. For every bit of support Liam received, he also faced resistance. Graves could no longer ignore Liam's presence. At a community meeting where the library project was discussed publicly, the two finally faced off. "You talk as if you're a hero," Graves said, wearing a cold smile. "But we know who you really are. You were never more than a window-cleaning kid, and now you want us to believe you have all the answers?" The room fell silent. Everyone awaited Liam's response. "Yes, I was a window cleaner," Liam replied, his voice steady. "And that job taught me to value every opportunity. Do you think that diminishes me? On the contrary, it gave me the strength to be here today. I'm not trying to play the hero, Graves. I'm trying to create something that benefits everyone, including those you have ignored for far too long." Liam's words were met with applause. Graves realized he was losing control of the narrative and left the meeting abruptly. But Liam knew the fight was far from over. A few days later, Liam was surprised by an anonymous email containing compromising information about his past. It was a clear attempt to divert attention from the project and ruin his reputation. Graves and his allies were playing dirty. Zara, who now worked directly with Liam on the project, suggested they ignore the attacks and focus on executing the renovation. "They're desperate," she said, "and they know they're losing." But Liam had another idea. He decided to organize a press conference to address the rumors directly. At the conference, Liam not only refuted the accusations, but also seized the opportunity to reveal the embezzlement Graves had committed years before. He presented documents he had kept with Zara, proving that Graves had stolen funds meant for educational programs. "This project is not just about building a library," Liam said. "It's about correcting past mistakes and ensuring that everyone has the same opportunities, regardless of where they came from." The revelation shocked the community. Graves was forced to face an official investigation, and his influence began to crumble. For the first time, Liam felt he was achieving justice, not just for himself, but for everyone who had been wronged by Graves's corrupt system. With Graves out of the picture, the library project gained full steam. Liam and Zara worked tirelessly to transform the space into a model of inclusion and innovation. The building was equipped with modern computers, comfortable reading areas, and a new section dedicated to young writers. More than that, the library became a symbol of resistance and overcoming adversity. People from all over the town began to see the space as a place where they could grow and learn, regardless of their circumstances. Young people from humble backgrounds began to seek out Liam to share their stories and ask for advice. He dedicated part of his time to mentoring them, offering not just resources but also hope. "If I could do it," he told them, "you can too. The important thing is to never give up, no matter how difficult it seems." Liam knew there was still much work to be done, but he was ready for the challenge. He was not just building a library, he was building a future. What will Liam do when Graves crosses the line again? Is victory completely guaranteed, or will there be more challenges on the horizon? The library was nearly ready for its grand reopening. The once cold and elitist space now shone with vibrant colors and areas designed for inclusion and learning. There were sections for children, young writers, researchers, and even a tech room filled with modern computers. Liam felt a sense of pride as he walked through the renovated corridors, seeing how the place had transformed into something that truly belonged to the community. But he knew there was still one crucial piece missing: justice. Liam had waited for years for the right moment to expose Graves. The reopening would be more than just a symbolic event. It would be an opportunity to correct the past and reveal the truth to everyone. The event had been widely publicized, attracting not only local residents, but also members of the press and influential figures from the city. Zara stood by Liam's side, helping to organize the final details. She understood that this would be a decisive moment for him. "Are you sure you want to do this today?" she asked, looking at Liam with a mix of concern and admiration. "Yes," he replied firmly. "Today is not just about the library. It's about giving people the truth they deserve." As the event began, Liam stepped up to the makeshift stage at the library's main entrance. The audience watched him intently, some curious, others already inspired by his story. He started by thanking everyone who had supported the project, but soon his tone shifted. "This library is a symbol of overcoming," he said, looking directly at the crowd. "But to understand what it represents, we need to acknowledge what it was in the past." He paused, letting his words linger in the air. Then he pulled out the documents he had kept for so long. For many years, this place was not a space for everyone. It was used as a tool to exclude, humiliate, and enrich those who should have protected it. And it's time to reveal the truth. Liam began to read the details of the embezzlement committed by Graves. He showed how funds allocated for educational programs had been used to finance personal luxuries, international trips, renovations to his home, and even extravagant dinners. The documents were clear and incriminated Graves indisputably. The crowd murmured in shock. Expressions of surprise and indignation were visible on every face. Representatives from the press scrambled to record every word, realizing the gravity of the accusations. At that moment, Graves, who had been hiding among the audience, jumped onto the stage. His face was flushed with anger, but he still exuded the same arrogance as always. "This is absurd," he shouted, snatching the microphone from Liam's hands. "You're going to believe a kid who cleaned windows. He has no credibility. He's still the same nobody he's always been." Liam took a deep breath. The humiliation he had felt years ago was still fresh in his memory, but now he knew he was in control of the situation. "You're right, Graves," he said, his voice calm yet filled with emotion. "I was that kid who cleaned your windows. I was the boy you publicly humiliated, the one you said would never amount to anything." He paused, staring directly at Graves. "And you know what I've learned? I've learned that true power does not lie in money or social position. It lies in knowledge, integrity, and the courage to do what is right." The audience erupted into applause. Graves tried to say something, but his voice was drowned out by the crowd's reaction. It was clear he had lost control of the narrative. The next day, the accusations against Graves made headlines throughout the city. He was formally removed from any position of influence, and an official investigation was opened to look into the embezzlement. His reputation, which he had so carefully maintained, was in ruins. Liam, on the other hand, received a flood of supportive messages. Young and old from all walks of life congratulated him for his courage and transparency. He knew this victory was more than personal. It was an important step in the fight for a fairer system. Days after the event, while reviewing the remaining documents, Zara found something curious. Among Graves's financial notes, there was a mention of a significant donation made years ago for a community program that never came to exist. Liam found it strange and decided to investigate further. After a few calls, he discovered that the donation had been made by a man named Thomas Wexler. The name was unfamiliar, but as Liam searched for more information, he was shocked. Wexler was the author of the book Zara had given him years ago, the same book that had the scribbled message, "Don't give up, I was rejected too." As he delved deeper into Wexler's story, Liam learned that he had also been a victim of Graves in the past. Wexler had attempted to implement inclusion programs in the library decades ago, but had been silenced and pushed aside. Before leaving, he left the book with the scribbled message as a form of inspiration for anyone who came after him. He believed that someone would continue his work one day, Zara said, her voice filled with emotion, and you were that person, Liam. The connection was clear but also profound. Liam realized that his journey was not just about him. It was part of something larger, a cycle of resistance and hope that transcended time. With graves removed and the library refurbished, Liam dedicated himself to ensuring the space remained true to his vision. He renamed the building the Thomas Wexler Library in honor of the man who had planted the first seeds of inclusion. On the day of the official inauguration, Liam stepped up to the stage again, this time with Zara by his side. He looked out at the crowd, made up of young people, the elderly, families and individuals from all backgrounds. Today is not just about a building, he said. It's about a dream that began with a simple message. Don't give up. This library is a reminder that everyone has the power to change the world, as long as they believe in themselves and never give up. Liam had triumphed, but would his impact continue to grow? How would he face the challenges that arose as he sought to expand his legacy? The library was alive again. Young people and adults moved between the newly organized shelves, while children laughed and ran around the areas designated for reading. Liam's project had finally come to fruition, and he felt a mix of relief and accomplishment with each visit he made to the place. However, there was still something that troubled him, a piece of the puzzle he couldn't seem to fit, the connection with the author of the book that changed his life. Liam spent more time in the library now than anywhere else. One day, while organizing the last documents left by Graves, he discovered a small locked box inside a cabinet in the administrative office. He took the box and brought it to Zara, who was helping to catalogue the new books. "Look what I found," Liam said, placing the box on the table. Zara, curious, adjusted her glasses and carefully opened the lid. Inside there were old papers, some documents, and a black and white photo of a man standing in front of the library. He looked young but carried a determined, almost defiant expression. Beside him stood a small group of people, likely colleagues or supporters. Zara froze when she saw the photo. Liam noticed her face change. There was a mix of shock and sadness in her expression. "Zara, do you know this man?" he asked cautiously. She took the photo with trembling hands, taking a deep breath before responding. "Yes, I know him. This man is my father." Liam fell silent, absorbing the revelation. Zara had never spoken about her family before, and he knew there was more to this story. He waited for her to continue when she was ready. "My father, Arthur Wexler," she began, holding the photo firmly, "was a teacher and activist. He believed in the power of education to transform lives, especially for people like you and me. He spent years trying to implement inclusive programs at this library, but Graves destroyed him." Liam leaned forward, surprised. "How so?" "My father tried to create a literacy program for adults and a series of free workshops for low-income youth. He even secured some significant donations to fund everything, but Graves blocked every initiative. He said the library was a place of prestige and that it would tarnish his reputation." Zara paused, her eyes filled with tears. "My father never recovered from that. He was devastated, but he left a message before he passed, that we would never stop fighting for inclusion. The book I gave you, Liam, that book was his. He wrote that message." Liam felt a knot in his throat. The book that had inspired him to keep going was a legacy left by Zara's father, a man who had fought the same battle he was now facing. Liam picked up the photo from the table and studied it intently. He felt an immediate connection to Arthur Wexler. "He looked determined," Liam said, returning the photo to Zara. "And he was right. What he started, we are finishing." Zara smiled, still struggling against tears. "I never spoke about this because I was afraid Graves would use my father's legacy against me. He was cruel enough to do that, but now I feel it's time to honor my father's work." The revelation sparked an idea in Liam. He knew that the library was already a symbol of resistance, but he wanted to do more. He called Zara for a meeting the next day, along with some members of the community committee who had helped with the project. "I want to officially dedicate the library to Arthur Wexler," Liam announced with conviction. "Not just as a tribute, but as a reminder of what he represented. This place should carry his name so that everyone knows his fight was not in vain." Zara was silent for a moment, processing Liam's gesture. Finally, she nodded, a genuine smile lighting up her face. "My father would be very proud of you, Liam, and so would I." The ceremony was planned for the following week. Liam and Zara worked together to organize the event, which included speeches, cultural presentations, and the unveiling of a plaque with the library's new name, Arthur Wexler Community Education Center. On the day of the ceremony, the space was packed. People of all ages came to celebrate the library's transformation and learn about the man who inspired it all. Zara delivered the opening speech, sharing her father's vision and dreams. "My father believed that education was the greatest equalizer," she said, her voice steady. "He always said that knowledge was the one thing no one could take from you, and that's why we're here today, to continue his mission." When it was Liam's turn, he stepped onto the stage with Arthur Wexler's photo in hand. He looked at the audience and spoke from the heart. "I never met Arthur Wexler, but I feel as though he has been by my side throughout my journey. The book he left behind changed my life, and today I want to ensure that his legacy continues to live on and transform the lives of many others." He unveiled the plaque with the library's name, and the audience erupted in applause. Zara, with tears in her eyes, hugged Liam and whispered, "Thank you for this." The library's dedication had a profound impact on the community. Arthur Wexler's name became a symbol of hope and perseverance. Young and old began to frequent the library in record numbers, taking advantage of the free resources and inclusive programs offered. Moreover, Liam and Zara's story caught the attention of national media. They were invited for interviews where they shared how Arthur's fight inspired the changes they were making. The library project became a model for other communities, and Liam began receiving invitations to help implement similar ideas in other places. One night after the ceremony had concluded, Liam and Zara sat on the steps at the library's entrance, gazing at the city lights in the distance. "You know your father had already planted this seed, right?" Liam said, looking at Zara. "He knew that someone, someday, would take what he started and make it grow." Zara smiled. "Yes, and I think he knew it would be you. I wouldn't have had the courage to do this alone. You made my father proud, Liam, and you made me hopeful again." With the library dedicated to Arthur Wexler, Zara and Liam's legacy was just beginning. But how would they expand their impact and face the challenges that would come with the growth of this project? The day of the official reopening of the library had finally arrived. The building's facade shone with a fresh coat of paint, and the gleaming sign proudly displayed Arthur Wexler Community Education Center. The place, which had once symbolized exclusion and elitism, was now a vibrant, welcoming, and accessible space for all. The reopening ceremony drew a crowd. People who had never set foot in the library before were present, curious to see the transformation. Young people from underserved neighborhoods, adults seeking knowledge, and even seniors eager to rekindle their love for reading filled the hallways. Liam stood at a distance, wearing a discreet smile as he observed everything. He felt genuine satisfaction witnessing the impact of his work. Beside him, Zara adjusted her glasses and checked the event's program. As the center's director, she was now the administrative force behind the project, ensuring that the vision of inclusion remained alive. Zara was the first to speak. With a calm yet firm voice, she shared the story of her father and his vision for the library's future. "This place is not just for storing books. It's for building dreams, for offering opportunities, and for reminding everyone that knowledge belongs to all regardless of where they come from." The audience erupted into a standing ovation, many visibly moved. Next, Liam was invited to the stage. He wasn't a great speaker, but the sincerity in his voice captured everyone's attention. "A few years ago, I was expelled from this library," he began, looking directly at the audience. "I was told I didn't belong here. Today, I'm back not to seek revenge, but to ensure that no one else goes through what I did. This place is a symbol that everyone deserves a chance." The applause was thunderous. Liam looked at Zara and smiled. They had come this far together, and that victory was shared. After the speeches, Liam walked through the library's busy corridors, absorbing the vibrant energy of the space. He paused beside a shelf of children's books, watching a shy young girl hesitate to approach. She held something in her hands, looking at him as if trying to gather her courage. "Hello," he said, offering an encouraging smile. "Can I help you?" The girl blushed, but extended a letter to him. "I wanted to give you this. I heard your story today and it inspired me. Thank you for everything you've done." Liam accepted the letter, intrigued. He opened the envelope right there and read the familiar words. "Don't give up. I was also rejected." He stood still for a few seconds, feeling the weight of that message. He looked at the girl and saw in her eyes the same flame he had years ago, a mix of determination and hope fighting to survive amid adversity. "Who gave you this message?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. The girl hesitated before answering. "My mom, she was wronged by a man who worked here many years ago. She always told me never to give up, even when it seemed impossible." The girl began to share her story. Her mother, Anna, had been an employee at the library when Graves was in charge. She had dreams of advancing her career, but Graves unjustly accused her of theft to rid himself of her and cover up his own failures. Anna lost her job and spent years struggling to support her family, but she never stopped encouraging her daughter to seek knowledge. Liam listened intently to every word, feeling the injustice weigh heavily on his heart. Anna's story was one of many that illustrated how Graves had used his power to crush those who threatened his position. He looked at the girl and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Your mother was right. What you're doing here today proves that she never gave up, and you shouldn't either." The girl smiled shyly. "I want to study. I want to be someone who can help people just like you are helping now." Liam felt a wave of emotion wash over him and made a promise right then and there. "You will have all the support you need. This library is here for that. And if you need more, come to me. I will help you." At the end of the day, Liam walked through the now bustling corridors. He saw children laughing as they flipped through colorful books, teenagers exploring computers, and adults participating in free workshops. The library was alive, pulsing with energy and hope. Zara found him near the study section. "I think we did it," she said with a tired but satisfied smile. "We did," Liam replied, looking around, "but there's still much to do." "Yes," Zara agreed, "but for the first time it feels like we're on the right path." Liam nodded, feeling at peace. He knew that true wealth was not found in money or power, but in the ability to transform lives. And in that moment, he realized he was exactly where he needed to be. Later, while reviewing the donation records for the library, Liam found a letter addressed to him. It was from the young girl's mother, Anna. In the letter, she expressed her gratitude for everything he was doing and mentioned that she remembered when Liam was just a young window cleaner. "I saw you cleaning the library's windows years ago," the letter read. "At the time, I thought you had the same determination I tried to pass on to my daughter. I never imagined you would be the one responsible for restoring dignity to that place. Thank you for closing this cycle of injustice and turning it into hope." Liam closed the letter, feeling a deep emotion. He looked out the window at the sky, letting Anna's words resonate in his mind. His journey had been long and filled with obstacles, but in the end, he had managed to do something that truly mattered. In the months that followed, the library became more than just a center for learning. It became a symbol of resistance and transformation. Young people from all over the city shared stories of how that space was changing their lives, and Liam and Zara began planning to expand the model to other communities. Liam knew that the fight for inclusion and equality would never end, but he was ready to continue. After all, he had learned that the greatest changes start with a simple message: don't give up. This story reminds us that no matter where we start, determination, resilience, and the power of knowledge can transform lives. Liam's journey from humiliation to triumph teaches us that the obstacles we face are often the stepping stones to greatness. His choice to rise above rejection and give back to the very place that once excluded him speaks volumes about the strength of character and the value of perseverance. It's a reminder that our dreams, no matter how impossible they may seem, are worth pursuing. What about you? What did you think of Liam's journey? Have you ever faced a moment where you had to turn rejection into motivation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your story. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell, so you never miss an inspiring story like this one. Hit the like button if you felt moved by Liam's transformation, and leave a comment to share your reflections. Be sure to check out our next recommended video by clicking the card on the screen for another unforgettable story. Thank you so much for watching and supporting our channel. Your engagement means the world to us, and we can't wait to see you in the next story.